In the game of Horrified, you will be playing with one of the provided heroes, and you will be playing against the universal monsters. Now you will be playing between 1 and 6 monsters. Each monster that you add is going to be an additional difficulty, and you're going to generally want to play against 3. And you can play mix and match whichever ones that you'd like to play against. The game will end in a victory if you are able to defeat whichever monsters that you've decided to play against, and the game will end in a loss if the terror track goes all the way up to the end here, the big skull, or, like in many co-ops, if the deck runs out, meaning you've run out of time. So, over the course of the game, the flow of the game, you're going to be moving around the board, and you're going to be bringing villagers around and trying to get them to safety. You're going to be performing actions specific to the monsters that you've decided to fight against. You're going to be picking up items from the board, trading them with your fellow heroes, and that's basically it. So let's take a quick look at the board here. The spaces are all connected, very easy to read here from the colors. One quick note about the map here is that the creature of the Black Lagoon is the only one that can move on these water paths here, so no other monster or player can do so. You'll see there's also these villagers, as I mentioned. They'll have at the top of them, they'll say where they're trying to get to. Poor Renfield here is trying to get to the hospital, so he'll need to eventually get there. You also have these items that are on the board, and they'll tell you where they go. So this one says mansion, and then they'll have a number at the top and a color, which is going to be important for later. Also, each of the monsters will have, depending on which one, they may have some overlays on the board, like this is an overlay that goes on the camp, so that you remember that that's an important location for this particular scenario. And like Dracula's got his coffins here. I usually like to leave them like this because I like the way the coffins look better, but this is a little easier to read to see. And then we also have the precinct just to round it out, and that's for the Invisible Man. Each of the monsters here will have their own special card, which is going to show you how they act and what you'll need to do to defeat them. I should note as well in the back, it's kind of nice, it just shows you a quick update on how to set each of those monsters up. The game round will go like many co-ops. You will have a hero phase followed by the monster phase. Then when that's over, you'll switch to the next hero, they'll take their hero phase, monster phase, and you'll continue like that until the game is over, ending in either victory or defeat. So let's look at what you can do on a hero phase. So on the hero phase, the first thing you can do is you can move. One action moves you 1 space, and I should also note here that right at the top of your hero badge it will tell you how many actions that you can take. Depending on some of the characters, a little like the Explorer is extra good, so she only gets 3 actions. Most everybody else gets 4, except for the Generalist, who doesn't have a special ability, so they get a 5th action. So for your first action that you can do, and you can repeat actions as many times as you like. I may have even repeated that statement. So moving around the board, that's 1 action, 2 actions, 3 actions, 4 actions. So you just move from these connected lines. Another action you can do is call a villager to you. So if you're moving, actually, if you move into a space or you start in a space or whatever with a civilian, a villager, you can move and they can come with you. You're just like, hey, come with me, and you just, guide them around. The other thing you can do is you can call a villager. You're kind of calling them to you. Hey, come to the tower quickly. And so Renfield here would follow you over to the tower. You can also push them away as long as they're in an adjacent space. So if you're in an adjacent space here, which these two are, you could yell to Renfield, hey, go 1 space away, and you could move them here or here. You can also call them to you. Hey, come here, like this. So you can do either or, right? Push them away to an adjacent space. I should also mention that they can be in the same spaces as monsters. You can move freely through monsters. There's no penalty. It may not be advisable when we look at the what happens later in the monster phase, so it's a little bit dangerous. You can also pick up any number of items in your space. So if I were down here in the graveyard, I can pick up all of them for 1 action. So I'm going to pick up these 2 for 1 action. I could also pick up 1 and leave the other one. Most of the time you would want to pick up everything in 1 fell swoop. It's very good for efficiency, but there are going to be cases where you might want to leave an item so that one of your fellow heroes can pick up an item. Also, you can share items. Speaking of items, you can pass, if you're on the same space as a fellow hero, which I just realized. So if you two are on the same space, You could trade as many as you like. You can give them 2, take none in return, give them 1, they give you 1, whatever. It doesn't really matter. You can switch items back and forth as much as you like. You can also use your special action. So some of them have special actions. For instance, the Explorer can place your hero in any non-water space. That would be an action. The Professor can move another hero a space without being near them. They can just, they're masterminding everything around, right? The archaeologist can pick up items from an adjacent space, which is his special power. So it just counts as an action as well. You can also advance one of the monsters, the plot on one of the monsters. So let's take a quick look at the ones that we have here. Dracula will tell you that when you're in a space with a coffin, you will use 6+ power worth of items. So for instance, if I had the mayor and I was in the space with this dungeon, as it says here, I could spend 6 power worth. So here I have 7 power worth, but I just lose those 2 items. They would go next to the bag to be placed back into the bag. Here's the bag of goodies, by the way. And that would destroy this coffin. We'd take it off the board and cover it over the dungeon space. When all of Dracula's coffins have been destroyed, he can't, then you can go ahead and encounter him on the board. So if you were to move into his space, and then you would use, as it says here, in Dracula's space, use 6+ worth of yellow items to defeat Dracula. So as long as you were able to have those items, if you had this pile of items and you were able to get rid of 6, then you would defeat Dracula, and he would be out of the game and you wouldn't have to worry about him anymore. So that's how you beat Dracula. For another example, you can use for the creature, you can get rid of items here. It says to solve it, we'll tell you right on the overlay. You can get rid of a yellow or a red or a blue item, and then you can move the boat to those spaces. So let's say he had these items, and I was in the camp. I could get rid of a yellow item, and that would actually jump me up to a yellow space. I can get rid of a blue, move to the blue, I can get rid of another blue, and that will skip down to here. Eventually, you're going to get the boat all the way to the lair, and then you're going to be in the creature space. You're going to get rid of a blue, a red, a yellow, doesn't matter the number. Again, doesn't matter the number on him at all. And that will allow you to defeat the creature. And so on and so forth. Each of the monsters has something different. The Invisible Man will be sort of moving around the board, stealing items, and you'll be showing evidence at the precinct in order to convince everybody that he is a real threat, and then you can go and defeat him with 9+ worth of items. Just to quickly look at the other monsters included, you've got Frankenstein and the Bride. You'll be humanizing them. You'll have some dials here, and you'll be moving them around until you have, they've learned about different items enough to become human, and then when they meet, they'll be happy and they'll go off. If ever they get together, then they cause some ruckus. The Mummy, you'll be moving scarabs around on this chart in order to break his curse before ultimately trying to defeat him as well. The Wolfman, you'll be trying to come up with a cure and then going into his space to defeat him. So each of them has a slightly different way that they work. Okay, and so that's all for the hero phase. I should also mention, when you are able to get, say Renfield here, gets to the hospital like he wants, the second that he gets to the hospital space, you would take him off the board. He's been saved, and out of gratitude, he's going to give you one of these cards. So for instance, and these cards you can play for free on your turn. They're just special actions or whatever. So for instance, we have Brandish Crucifix, which is choose one, place Dracula in any space, so very powerful. You can play that at any time on your turn or your other hero's turn, and you'll place him on any space, and that'll be very handy to get him out of the way, or if you want to defeat him, you can move him to your space. And it's very thematic. You're like forcing him back with the crucifix. Now, if Dracula is not in the game, this card still is useful because it will allow you to move any monster 3 spaces. So there's always that sort of thing where you'll be finding these cards that will be particularly helpful with one monster, but if you're not playing with them, they are not useless. They do have another function. For instance, a special delivery, Wilbur and Chic here. Inspired by that, everything is very thematic. Hero may give any number of items to one other hero, no matter where they are. So there's things like that. And they're all, of course, things from the movies themselves. So that takes care of that. When you're done doing your actions, you don't have to take them all, but when your turn is done, you will go on to the monster phase. The first thing you'll do is you're going to draw a card from the monster deck. If you look at the card here, it's going to have a number right at the top. That number here is 3. And you're going to pull out a number of items from the bag equal to that. So we've got 3 items. You're going to look. This item says the tower on the bottom. So I'm going to place it at the tower. This one says the inn, so I'll place it up at the inn. And this one says the tower as well, so I place it at the tower. That's how items come back out onto the board. Then you're going to do whatever's in the middle of the card. So this one says the innocent. So you'll place Maria at the barn. This is the poor little girl, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen, you've had, I don't know, 90 years to see Frankenstein, but he throws this little girl into the lake. Poor little Maria here with the little flower. So we're going to place her out at the barn. And you can see at the top of her it says the camp. So you'll want to get her over to the camp in order to get her reward and get her off the board. And then the bottom of the card will always show a sequence of monsters. So this one shows Frankenstein, the bride. So you're going to just skip that. You don't use that because those monsters are not in the game that we're playing right now. So you'll skip that, and then you'll do the fire symbol. The fire symbol will always be the frenzied monster. It will start with the lowest monster, and there'll be ways that it will move around, but you'll always do this. So sometimes, because of that, a monster will move twice in a row. So now that means Dracula will go one space, and he will roll 3 dice. So you will always move him towards the nearest hero or villager. So at the moment, we can see he's 1 space away from this hero. But he's very far away from this hero and this villager and this hero. So he will move into that space, and then he will roll 3 dice. So this is our character here that we're using. So you'll roll the dice, and you will decide, first of all, if there are multiple people in the place, like let's say we have another villager with us for whatever reason, or another hero, then you'll decide before rolling dice who's going to be the object of the attack. So he will do 2 hits to me and his special power. Let's talk about the special power in a moment. So 2 hits, what I can do is either I can get rid of 2 items, which will block the attack, okay? And you may or may not want to do that if those are items you really want. But if you don't block the attack, then you will have to go to the hospital, like you were injured, and then the terror level will go up by 1. Okay, and again, that's one of the key ways you can lose the game, so you want to avoid that from happening. Sometimes if there's a frenzied monster and you'll see the monster that's frenzied will be going twice and he's in your square, and you'll maybe only have 1 item, then it's probably better just to let him hit you once. You'll leave the square, and then you invariably can keep your item and not have to take that second attack. So there is some strategy there in terms of how you do that. So once you've done all the monsters on the bottom, then you're free to go back to the next player phase. So for instance here, just another card here. This one you'll bring out 2 items. Then you'll do this action, but this is for the Wolfman. They're color-coded so you can see. The Wolfman isn't in this game, so you'll simply ignore that particular card. Then at the bottom here, it says the creature will go. So we would move the creature 1 space and he would roll 2 dice. Now, right now we see that he is not really close to anyone. He's 1-2 spaces away from them. If she was here, we could see that he's 1-2 away from these heroes, and then he's also 1-2 away from this villager. In that event, you could choose which way that you move him, and there's a lot of strategy in that particular action. So let's say we moved him down here. Now we're getting away from our heroes, but we are leaving this girl open. If she's killed, so if he were to move in that space and kill the villager, that would also raise the terror level. So the 2 things that raise that terror level are heroes getting injured or villagers getting killed. There is another way. Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein can raise the terror level, but that's best left for when you're playing with those characters. So you go ahead and skip that. So you better go on the bottom, so now we've done the creature, and then we're going to do Dracula. So we would move him in the same way. He would not move because he's already in the space with us, and he would simply roll those 2 dice. And then you would go with Dracula again when you were completed with that, because this is a frenzied monster. So that's how you do the monster phase. So now I'm just going to show you a sample turn. So let's say it's this character's activation. His special power allows him to pick up from an adjacent space. And let's say I wanted this silver cane because it's a very powerful 6 item here in red. So his special power allows me to pick it up from an adjacent space. So I'm going to pick that up, add it to my little stash here, and I'll go 2, 3, and then let's say I'll say 4, I'll push her to the camp. And so she'll be off the board, and I'll draw a card. I didn't shuffle those since I got the brandished. So that's his turn. Then I would go to the monster phase. Let's just do this so we can see something different. And this one is 3. So I will put out 3 items. I'm going to draw 3 items from the bag. I've got the mansion. I've got the tower. And I've got the institute. Okay. And then this one says Egyptian expert. Place Professor Pearson at the cave. Okay. So Pearson is here. He'll be placed at the cave. All right, and we can see at the top of his thing that he wants to get to the museum. Okay, he's from the mummy, of course. And then we'll activate the mummy. He's not in the game. So then we're going to activate the frenzied monster, which at the moment is Dracula. And we move 2 spaces, and we'll go roll 2 dice here. So Dracula, we can look. He's 1 space away from this villager, but he's also 1 space away from me. So I have quite a lot of items here, and I don't want the terror track to raise, so I'm going to move him to me. He'll roll 2 dice. And he's got the special, which I'm glad I rolled because I forgot to complete telling you how to do that. So he's going to do 1 damage. I'm going to go ahead and throw that away. Or excuse me, it shouldn't go in the bag. It should go next to the bag. When the bag is empty, we'll go ahead and fill it back up again at the end. So Dracula's special here. It's when he's in the space with the coffin. Or excuse me, here it is. Dark Charm. Place the current player's hero in Dracula's space. So if it wasn't my turn, well, it is my turn and he's in my space, but if this had happened on someone else's turn, let's say it was this player's turn, then you would hop it over to them. So then he would fight them. So it's sort of, he's charming you and place the hero, excuse me, so if it was his turn, you would do the opposite thing. He's charming you and bringing you to him. The creature has a rock the boat, which pushes his thing back. The invisible man, he'll be moved, his thing here will move him 2 spaces toward the nearest villager. Stalk unseen, it says. So there you have some various thematic type powers that they'll do. So that's just a complete turn, pretty straightforward.